Awesome. Well, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Mike White,
And I am Shelby Hagerdon.
and we wanted to thank the Iowa Motion Picture Association for having us as part of their education and professional outreach. Um, we're going to talk about ourselves here in just a couple of moments. But first of all, for those who don't know, this is being we're doing this live, of course, at the Fleur Cinema and Cafe, is how I think they like to have it.
Yep.
And then also this is being streamed live, I think, in a bunch of venues. So
Yeah,
we'll figure that out.
Spots.
So that's terrific. But today's theme is making your first feature film. Shelby and I have been producing together for quite some time now. I think we are just now, how many features?
We're on to our fifth
feature. We're making our fifth feature film later this summer. We've had some great success and some not so great success, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we learned along the way, some of the successes, and maybe more importantly, some of the failures along the way in doing this process and in this process, and share what that's like with you. So before we get started, I'm going to give us a little bit of background here. I'm going to talk about myself for just a moment so you know who I am. First of all, I'm actually the associate. I don't know. I think I've got an issue maybe. I'm the associate professor of film at Wayne State College in Wayne, Nebraska. One of the things that you'll find is that I'm a full-time professor, but for many, many years, I worked in the business. My original degree was in broadcast, and out of school, I worked for production houses. I also worked on films. I worked in local TV. I did all of those different things. I was very involved in the midnight movie scene back in the 90s. Then took a break away from it for a while to work in the computer industry as editing systems started to come. I worked in sales, returned to the business later, and that's kind of where I am now. Also, as far as my background goes, I have a master's degree in communication as well as a doctorate. I'm also in the professional program for screenwriting at UCLA, which I'm finishing this spring. Okay, so Shelby.
Cool. I'm Shelby Hagerdon. Professionally, I'm a creative producer and writer at Made by Things, which is an animation studio. We're kind of based all over the place, so I work remotely. But yeah, I have my my bachelor's is in film production and theory. I have a screenwriting MFA from Emerson College, which is number 4, I think, in screenwriting in the country. And then, of course, I'm predominantly a screenwriter. Competed at Austin Film Festival, Screencraft, all of the above.
Yeah, and she's had films on the red list, or not films, but scripts on the red list and all kinds of stuff like that as well too. We produce as a couple. Every other year, well, I produce one year, she produces the next. So she just did The Entomologist's Wife, which is premiering
this weekend on Saturday in Sioux City. If you want to go for a little drive, Entomologist's Wife in Sioux City.
Yes, and then also we are starting our 5th feature, The Painter. It is in pre-production now. We're going into principal in July. So we're going to be working on those coming up, so we alternate. One year she goes, one year I go. So we go back and forth. So that's kind of how we work. Okay. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I want to talk about, first of all, your resources. The big thing that comes down to features is resources. When we take a look at this, I started out, and I think back to my first feature, and I was lacking in kind of all of these things. One, I had done an extraordinary number of shorts, but I had never really done a feature. And we're going to talk about how shorts do not equal a feature. By logic, you would say, oh, making a feature is going to be like making 5 shorts. It is nothing like that at all. Okay. It is a radically, radically different thing. And there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind as you do that. Also, you need to have the proper experience to do it. I would not recommend going into it if you've never worked on a feature before. So you need to make sure that you're working on a feature, shadowing people on feature. And I don't mean as a director or a cinematographer, as a producer. Even if you're not producing the film, you need to shadow a producer that's worked on a feature to understand the operational aspect of that. Add to that?
Yeah, producers tend to be pretty open to letting people just see what they're doing and see what the day-to-day is. Producing is a very difficult thing to teach. It's usually something that's really just learned through experience. So definitely recommend, if you can shadow a producer, if you can meet one, even just having a day with a producer, being able to ask a lot of questions is incredibly helpful, because that's really where you're going to end up getting stuck. We always say that, Ron Howard says that every film will break you. And if you have a really solid producing background, that is what's going to save you, because it's the constant resolution of problems.
Talent from the aspect of not just acting talent, but the onset talent, right? We sometimes get really fixated on the actors, and that's great. But also, you need to be able to look at the flexibility. We've had situations where maybe we have an actor that's very talented, but maybe they're very difficult to work with. That really makes things tough. Or maybe we have an actor that's very talented, but their schedule is so difficult that it's hard to get them on set. Sometimes you've got to make a little bit of a trade. Sometimes you have to give up a little bit of their talent to be able to have the professionalism and the flexibility. And that's really hard to let go of, especially when you have an image in your head. Also, from the standpoint of talent, you need to really recognize that you need to have people that have the right experience to do what you need to do. Maybe you have someone who's just they're a boom mic operator and they're terrific and they're really good. And then all of a sudden you say, all right, we're going to give you a field mixer. We're going to put you in time code. They don't have the right background for it. They might be talented doing that one thing, but they don't have the advanced skill to work on a feature. So it's something that we need to really keep in mind.
And that's really why it's so important too to have great leadership, because that's going to be something that helps guide you throughout. So if you do have an actor that maybe isn't quite as experienced, if you have a director on there that is on your set that's able to help pull them along, that's help to coach them, or a more experienced actor that can also help coach. We've had that before.
We've had that. We've brought in actors where we go, well, maybe they're not quite as talented as we want,
but we have another actor on set that they can work
but
with.
We'll have an experienced actor that can pull them along and pull them up and bring them up. We do that a lot. We've worked with child actors a lot, where maybe they don't have a lot of experience, but you'll have some veteran actors that can really help them, and that helps.
Filmmaking is teamwork, so it's important not to think about people as individuals, but think about what the overall team looks like.
We're going to talk about equipment later, but one of the things is I think people try to get into a film and they don't have the equipment resources. Now, whether that be something that we're going to borrow it, or we own it, that's great, or we're going to rent it. But you have to be able to identify what equipment you need for the vision that you have. Okay. You can't, shoot Mission Impossible on a phone. Okay. But you might be able to do maybe what I call like a conversation on a phone, like a restaurant thing on a phone. So understanding what our equipment limitations are, that was a limitation we had early. We started out probably with some sound stuff that we didn't have just early. And then later we learned that we needed that.
And also to recognize what is most important and where you can kind of pick and choose what is the most important piece that you have.
And we'll talk about financial resources a little bit too. We made The Cross, which is a distributed film, international distribution. That was a film that we sold. We made The Cross for less than $10,000. So when we screened that film, we had a lot of people that said, I can't believe you made this film for less than $250,000. We made it for less than $10,000. So it's one of those things of being able to understand where to get money, in-kind resources, and those things, but we can talk about that a little bit more as we get going. Okay, so let's go on. All right, let's go ahead and talk about how shorts don't make features.
Unless you're making an anthology piece, and that's very different.
It is, and one of the things you have to calculate is your principal has to be calculated in advance. Does anybody, I don't know if anybody here uses Movie Magic. You ever heard of Movie Magic before?
It's producing software.
Movie Magic is a producing software. It's crazy, crazy powerful. And if you use Final Draft, are there Final Draft users here? Okay, good. Thank you. If you use Final Draft, which is a screenwriting software, it will integrate with Movie Magic. So once that software hits, it will say, these are your actors pages, and it will go ahead and you can put in their availability and all of those different things. It will help you make your call sheets, or the sheets that you put out every day for crew assignments and those kinds of things. It will help you create a master schedule. So when one of your actors has a death in the family and is off set for 3 days, you just punch that in and it will help you realign that. Shelby's been producing for such a long time that she doesn't have to do that. She produces every day for a living, all day long, and she can do it without Movie Magic. I don't do that. So for me, having a resource like that makes my life a lot easier. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think one of the things to notice when you are trying to, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with scheduling, but talking about kind of Movie Magic, when you're breaking those things down and you're trying to create your schedule for your feature. And why it's so different from a short is because when you're breaking up that schedule, you're not only looking at the actors, you're looking at the location as well. So if you're trying to look at the location, it's like, okay, well, we have 8 hours and that's it on this set. But I can only work with this actor for 2 hours, and then this actor doesn't come in until 5 hours later. So how is it that you can integrate that into your schedule and get everything that you need at that location? It's a little bit different with shorts, and then why it's not a short and then another short and then another short, because those are things where you could just kind of keep coming back maybe to the same location. But if you're working on a feature, you have a lot more limited time because you're trying to get everything together. You're trying to be able to maintain continuity. So you really have to be, constantly keeping in consideration what your time looks like, what your budget looks like, and what your schedules look like.
And if you haven't produced before on a large scale, that software will help you a lot. It
will help organize those thoughts into a more coherent document.
Now, something I wanted to add to this is, I don't know if anyone's shot with children before. Something that we always do is we shoot, even if it's a non-union set, we shoot with union rules. So we make sure that we're giving kids the breaks that they need. We're making sure we're following the craft services rules and those things.
And if that's not something you're aware of, Movie Magic helps with that.
Movie Magic will help you. So you will be shooting like inside of union rules. I know in like Iowa and Nebraska, most sets are not union sets. But for best practices, you should operate as if you are on a union set. It's good for safety, especially for violence or intimacy. All of those union rules are there to protect the actors and protect you legally. So those are things that you want to be able to do. So, yeah.
The Movie Magic software, does it work with like multiple users share the same data, like a Google Drive doc?
It does.
Okay, that's awesome.
It's really cool. And Final Draft does that too.
Yep. So it works. It's absolutely fantastic. So, and just to say, we are not being paid by the Movie Magic people, nor are we being paid by Final Draft.
Them.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
$29. Yep, that's right. And
so while you're making your movie for 6 months,
it's well worth it to have that subscription while you're in principal. So that's going to be really great. Something I think we had a really successful, and I don't want to give too much history, but we had a really successful short film. I hadn't produced anything for a while, and this was about 2017. We had a film called
Ghost in Her.
The Ghost in Her, which is about a guy who owned a record store. The short went crazy. It won all kinds of stuff. It went all over the country, did really, really well. And it worked well. I shot it with a single lens, and it was terrific. And then the college was like, hey, do you think you could make a feature? And I said, well, I can try. And one of the things that I realized is I didn't have the proper resources to do that. And I mean more than money. I mean, I didn't have staff resources. I didn't have the equipment resources. I didn't really do a proper assessment before. That film came, and the film turned out, and it was okay. But I think now, if I was to do that now with the kind of resources I have now, especially crew, it would be a lot better. So something you need to approach feature filmmaking is get out of the idea, I'm really good at shorts. Because every time, I just came back from Collegiate National Film Festival, and there was a woman there who just made her first feature. She had made 40 shorts. And she was like, I went into this, she goes, a feature will humble you. I'm not discouraging you, but it will humble you because it is really hard. And I will honestly tell you, and Shelby will attest, there's times I take off my hat, throw it, and stomp on it because I'm so frustrated and say, I can't do this. And then we have to talk each other off the ledge. And that's just how it works. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So that's the case. All right. You got to sell the dang thing. This is something too. And Shelby and I have a really hard time with this is we love art house cinema, Neon, A24, Searchlight. We love all that independent cinema. We love it, love it, love it. But there's not a giant audience for that. So we made a couple of features. We love the features. And they're wonderful. We love them, but
they're niche.
But they're niche and they're hard to sell. So we went ahead and we made The Cross, and The Cross really wasn't an intentional film from the standpoint of distribution, but people loved it. People loved The Cross, and we had a lot of offers on it. Our agent had a lot of ideas about distribution for it. We disagreed with our agent, and we no longer work with that agent. That's a complete other lecture. We no longer work with that agent. And then we did a different distribution methodology after that happened. But now after The Cross, everybody came back and said, we loved your period drama. Said, could you do it again?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to make another period drama very bad. But the success of that gave us an opportunity. So we're making another period drama. And that's the thing. And also you have to ask yourself, you know, where do you want it to be seen?
Yeah. Well, and understanding what is the movie. That was something that we went into with The Cross, and we'll be screening that this summer. So if you haven't seen it, you'll be able to see it here. But one of the things that we went into with The Cross is we knew it wasn't going to be a religious film.
If anybody's ever seen Casablanca before, Casablanca was only made because a few years earlier, there was a film called Algiers. And Algiers starred a French actor named Pepe Le Moko. You may know Pepe Le Pew is. Pepe Le Pew is based on Pepe Le Moko, right? So what happened was Casablanca only happened because they went into to Warner and said, listen, it's going to be just like Algiers. And they said, great, make the movie. So if you have other successful films in your comps, it's much easier to ask people for money.
Yep.
Also, it gives and this is something they don't talk about in decks. They always talk about decks as, oh, it's for pitching. But your crew needs a deck because your crew needs to understand your vision ahead of time. Also inside of that deck too, you're going to be able to start your production design. What do your costumes look like? Because if you've got a producer and a director that have completely different visions of what that film's going to be like, you're going to get halfway in and you're going to go, wait, I have a completely different vision than you do.
You're making two different movies.
You're making two different movies. So the deck allows us to go ahead and do that. And everybody goes, oh, I know it's a lot of work. In Iowa, we have a lot of great grants, and I know people put decks together for grants, but even if there's not a grant, you should be putting that deck together for your crew. You should be putting it together for your actors. I have actors that I send them the deck so they have a vision of what the film is like. So that's something you should also be doing.
And I recommend putting together a deck before you write the screenplay. You might want to have two different decks. That's something that I do is when I start a screenplay, I start with a deck. I go, okay, this is how I want it to feel. These are the characters. Maybe I'm, trying to outline it. It's loose, right? You haven't written the script yet, but you're putting together something where you can visually recognize what it is. You can go back and reference it. What was it that I was thinking about at the beginning of this? Great. I already have it in the deck. It's something you can easily go back and look at every time you have a question about your own work.
And we will have a separate lecture on writing your first screenplay.
Yep. Next month.
So if you want to go ahead and come to that. So determine where you want it to be seen. So what I mean by that is, do you want a theatrical tour? Do you want streaming? Do you want it to go to physical media? In the case with ours, we didn't really have that vision ahead of time because of the situation. It was a film I was making for my family and I was desperate to get it finished. Then it finished. And then thanks to Screen Iowa, we had a great theatrical tour. It toured the entire state in cinemas. We got residual checks for that. We got money that came in from our theatrical tour, which was super fun on Fridays.
Yeah.
So we got money coming in to help us do that. Then, of course, we had a streaming situation, and negotiating the streaming was different. And we can talk about that during distribution. And then, we dealt with Amazon, and then we dealt with a few other companies and stuff. So, knowing where it wants to be is an interesting thing. But I think you need to start out with that idea. Where do you want it in the end? And I know everybody goes, well, I don't care about the commercial aspect of it. But if you make a movie and only 6 people see it, you made a movie for 6 people.
And your crew matters too. That's a big thing. The actors and the crew really, really matter, because if you don't care about, okay, well, we don't care if it wins anything. We don't care if it goes out, if anybody sees it. The other people on your film, they do care because they want other people to be able to see it. So and that's that whole thing. It goes back to filmmaking. It's teamwork. It's always taking into consideration, who are the other people on your set? How do they feel? Where do they want it to go as well? Streaming obviously offers a lot of opportunities, but there's a million different avenues that you can go. And
the viewership matters when we talk about where your film is seen. We started a film that had 3, we'll call them child cast members, 2 adult cast members, and a couple others. So we went in and only 2 of those folks had agents. By the time the distribution hit, every single person in that cast had an agent. Because the film had gone out, it had been seen, people had reached out, and they all had agents. So even though we weren't able to pay them very much, we were able to help their careers a lot. Yeah. And then now the next time we cast, we had 120 people come out for 5 parts.
Yeah.
So we had 120 actors come out because we had a reputation for being able to get people going. And that's one of the things you need. Okay. Shelby, you want to start with this and start to talk about how features
Yeah.
differ?
Okay, so starting off, principal, usually 4 to 10 weeks. Shorts are usually a lot shorter than that. I mean, we have the 48-hour short, 48-hour film project. You can usually, do it in a weekend, do it in a couple of days. Features usually take quite a bit longer. That means you've got a lot to consider. Again, like you have continuity. You're going to have to keep track of your schedules. It's a much bigger, longer project, a much bigger undertaking. And that's only principal. That's not talking about the months leading up to it, your table reads, your pre-production, and then also your post-production after it. Do you want to mention anything about that?
No, but I want to go to the next one. Stories
Okay.
tend to be over many days, which require costume and prop consideration. You need to ask yourself, what are script days? So what is a script day? A script day is scenes 1 through 6 are in this script day.
Yep.
So one of the things we had is with the cross, we had 96 costumes that had to be managed and 96. Well, and with that, we had makeup looks that our makeup and hair team had to have. So those costumes were set up and they had little tags on them. Those tags had numbers to go ahead and have that because the continuity had to be perfect. They would joke, they said, oh, that costume smelled so bad from the sweat by the time we were done. But we have to go ahead and have those costumes ready and set all the time. The cross was complicated. It was 28 scenes in a variety of different locations. We did a cross burning scene where the interior of the house was in Lenox, South Dakota. The exterior of the house was Homer, Nebraska. And the cross burning itself was Smithland, Iowa. Those 3 things are cut together to create one scene. But because of that, there's a very complex continuity. And then we actually shot the interior scene of the cross burning the first day of principal. And then a month and a half later, we shot the exterior cross burning. I mean, it was 6 weeks later.
Yep.
And then cut together for the same sequence. So the thing we have to understand is understanding your day of days and those things. Your movie magic software can help you manage that. So it is very tricky.
When you have your binder, that's going to be a really essential thing. I'm going to mention that really quick.
Talk about
It's good to
binders.
have a binder that you keep that's basically going to be your Bible, okay? You're going to carry that thing everywhere with you. That is your film Bible. It will stick with you forever until the project is done. So what you're going to do is you're going to have in that, when you open it up, have everything color-coded. Like if you're insane like me, everything is color-coded with those days. Have them all corresponding. If day 1 is green, everything in day 1 is green. If you're going to have your costumes, everything, all of your props labeled, it is 1 and it's green. So it's really easy to recognize. So you're not thinking back. It's like, oh, okay, did they wear this day? Did we take photos that day? If you have everything properly labeled, you're not wasting that time. And also it's very helpful too, if you, when you're going back in the beginning, when you're trying to figure out your continuity, taking pictures of everything, printing it out, putting it into that binder will help you later on. It's just keeping things as organized as possible in the beginning.
And keep your contracts.
Keep your contracts.
Keep your contracts.
Have
keep
people
your,
sign contracts.
Keep your agreements with actors. Keep your screening contracts.
Yes.
Keep all of that stuff because when you get a distributor, they're going to want all of that legal.
Yep.
They're going to want all of the legal. Things that you wouldn't even think of. And it's too tough to get it when so-and-so is now on a shoot in another state. I want to talk about the number of locations. We've been scouting. If you would like, you can follow the painter. And because I'm a teacher, I usually keep a Facebook page. And when I make a deal for locations, so the next picture takes place in the 20s, and I'm using the Black Hawk Hotel in Cedar Falls. Anybody know that hotel? Beautiful period 1920s hotel. Looks untouched. It's all restored. They were so happy to work with us. They were so excited to be like, oh my God, a movie. We don't have to pay for it. They're going to let us use it because they're excited. We went to Boone to the train museum. We have a scene that takes place in a train. They're excited about it. They want us to use this. It's always cheaper to find a location than to build a location.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Something that we had to do with the painter, or not the painter, but the cross, was we had to build a restaurant from the 1920s. We built this restaurant set, and it was so funny. We got some criticism back from the festival, and it said, that restaurant location is so great, but you should have backed up that camera so we can see more of it. They didn't know it was a set.
It didn't exist.
It did not exist.
There was
It's
no more to show.
we couldn't back up because we would have seen the carpet. But it was one of those things. I do have to build a set this summer for the next picture. I hate building sets. I'd rather find a set, but it's always cheaper to find one than to build one. So always consider that. And gas is always cheaper than construction. So if I've got to go ahead and drive from Sioux City to Des Moines for a location, driving the crew to Des Moines is way cheaper than building a set. So that's always the case. So that's something you might want to consider. Anything on location?
Oh, no, completely agree.
Scheduling is much more demanding due to the length, and you will spend most of your time scheduling. I have student producers all the time, and I say, what is the most difficult part of filmmaking? And everyone always says it's scheduling. The little dance, in the past 3 weeks, we've had 3 different actors come to us with schedule changes. We don't even go into principal till July.
Yep.
We've had 3 sets of schedule changes, and we're not even in principal yet. So understand that that's going to be frustrating, and understand that it's flexible. I don't usually, okay, this is a hot take. I don't usually recommend producing and directing yourself. I usually recommend having a separate producer, separate director. Some people have a mind for it. I do not. I also don't recommend trying to shoot the film and direct the film yourself. I have found that I'm a way better director of actors if someone else is shooting. And that's me personally. Maybe you are that fantastic person that can produce and shoot and direct and do magic tricks and backflips, but that is not me. So understand your own limitations as you get into that.
It's something that if you're directing, you're going to start, and you're producing, you're going to start getting distracted by the producing when you're directing. If you're producing, you're going to start getting distracted by the directing. If you're trying to schedule out, okay, well, we have 2 hours, but I really want to get this shot. I'm going to get that shot. And I know that this actor is going to need additional time. You can't do that. You've got to realize this is a schedule and I've got to stick to it. However, if you're producing and you bring a director on, if you can bring on a director who has produced in the past and they have had that mindset,
That's a gift.
that is a gift, because that director is already thinking similarly to you. They won't be distracted by the schedule, but they're aware of it. Finding somebody that can be acutely aware of the schedule without letting it distract them is a gift.
Cost of production is a lot higher. That's our next one. You're going to spend money on things that you never thought you'd spend money on.
Yep.
You're going to spend money on things that make people happy. We had a young actress that was in a film of ours. She was also in a film with Kristen Wiig. She has very, very young, has an agent. She wanted to have apple cider champagne all the time.
Yeah.
And it made her happy. And as long as she drank apple cider champagne, she was fine on set. I would buy it, whatever she needed. If that's what she needed, that's what we bought, right? So it's one of those things. Also, hotel accommodations for us are the biggest expense.
Yes.
Because we have actors travel in, we pay for their hotel expenses, those kinds of things. So for us, lodging is the absolute number one expense. So that's something that we always consider as well.
Yeah, there's always going to be something unexpected. So keeping in mind when you're building out your budget, have some budget that's allocated for the unexpected. It's very, very important, because you never know if you're going to have to reschedule a day. If you've got an outdoor shoot and it rains, you got to reschedule a day. And that's going to be an unexpected expense.
Continuity is vital. When we originally we shot Ever Fallen, the girls had to have nose rings. I cannot tell you the number of times that we got into shooting where we're an hour in going, somebody doesn't have a nose ring in. I recommend, I don't know how many people have a makeup artist on their team. You should always have a makeup artist / costumer.
One that you really trust.
And I know people don't, because I see your shorts. So a lot of times shorts come in and nobody has any makeup on. Even the guys should have makeup on. So try to have a makeup artist on every project. Shorts too. We have our makeup team and costume team are one and the same.
Yeah.
So I always recommend that as well.
And it's really valuable too to have makeup and costume people that you trust that are also very calming for the actors. Because one of the things that we always think about, we always use the same makeup and costuming team every single production. Part of the reason is because they're so good with actors. When actors come on, the first person that they're talking to that day is makeup.
Yeah.
That's going to set the tone for the rest of their day. So if you have great makeup team that are really able to, if they can run lines with the actors, if they're really, really aware of the script, that makes your life easier.
Yeah. And don't underestimate your makeup people.
Yeah.
The thing is, our team is so good. They'll come in and they know the scene from the night before. They've read it.
They know the lines.
They know the lines. They're coming into the chair. You excited about today? You excited? I'm going to get you makeup. I know it's going to be sweaty out there. We're going to use a couple of tricks to get it to look good. They are your big cheerleaders at the beginning of the day. And you want that. And the actors will develop a rapport with them and they'll find them comforting throughout. So please don't underestimate your costume and makeup staff is one of the most important things in feature filmmaking. If you don't have one, get one. Get a team. Get one.
And there's so many, and they're great.
They're begging to be on your set. Okay. So it all starts with the words. I don't want to spend an extraordinary time on this, but you need to have a quality script, 3-act, or if you're an advanced writer, a 5-act. Make sure that you have this. There's a million screenwriting books. Have a really strong screenplay. You're dead in the water if you don't have a strong screenplay to start with. Yep. Nobody's going to want to watch your film.
And you don't want to rely on your actors to carry it.
Yeah. And have a gripping storyline. Something they always say is you should have your big event by page 17. That's kind of a UCLA. I don't know what Emerson is, but by page 17, the big event that sets the story in motion should happen by then. So make sure you have that and make sure that you have a clear and compelling premise. Sometimes we watch films, especially micro budget indies, and we're like, what was this movie about? You know, and it's something I think that people need to do. And I don't want to get on my high horse too much, but think about when you watch a movie and say, okay, I'm going to watch Captain America Civil War. Well, what's Captain America Civil War about? It says, well, the Avengers are fighting each other. No, it's not. It's about government overreach. That's a movie about government overreach. People don't think about that thematically, but you need to think about that. What is your movie actually about? And make sure that you're doing that. And we'll address that later in another lecture.
And one of the things that's really helpful is if you can write a log line for your script at the get-go, that's fantastic. Start off with a log line. You might not be able to.
Of a movie you want to see.
Of a movie that you want to see, right? This is the script that I want to write. Here's a log line. And if you can't write a 1-page summary of it, if you're going on and on and on for 6 pages, you're not ready to write it yet. Mm-hmm. You need to sit there. You need to figure it out. But once you're able to write that 1-page summary, you've got the heart of it. You know what the movie's about. So being able to answer those questions, I mean, really, it's like if you're in the shower and you're pretending to like do an interview on a late night show, right? We all do this. Maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's just me.
I think it's just
but anyway, you know, you're answering questions to yourself. Be able to ask yourself those questions. Can you answer them clearly? And are you going to ramble on? If you're going to ramble on, maybe you're not ready yet.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. And these are just a few notes. We're not going to continue on these, but these are just some screenplay notes. If you want this slideshow, you can always request it from me and I can go ahead and give it to you. But these are a few. Have correct formatting. The software is so good now. It does a lot of this for you. If you can't afford Final Draft, get Writer Duet. It's free. Yes. Writer Duet's completely free and it works terrific. Have really flawless spelling and grammar. If you're going to compete with a screenplay, you've got to have it. Show, don't tell. So many of the scripts we have, it explains everything. Don't show it visually. And then of course, focus on those visuals. This comes down to the storyboarding process, which should be part of your pre-production. We're going to cover this in pre-production, but Shelby's going to talk about how important it is.
Yeah. So one of the things with this is no one's going to read your script, right? Besides your crew and your actors. And maybe if you put it out to contest, right? But after the movie's made, no one's going to read the script. Everything needs to be shown on screen. If you have a big, long description about the backstory of somebody and how their life is traumatic, no one's going to know that. Maybe it's great for the actor, but have that conversation with the actor. Don't put it in your screenplay.
He came in with the past dripping upon him.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody knows that. Nobody cares.
It's not helpful, right? So what is going to be shown visually? What are the visual cues? Don't say the person is exhausted. Say that their feet are heavy, that they're dragging themselves. What are the visual cues? What is the visual language? Not just emotion.
If you can't do that, there's a book. It's called The Emotion Thesaurus. Have you ever heard of The Emotion Thesaurus before?
It's so helpful.
It has something in it and it says, for example, tired. And it has 24 ways to write being tired visually. Yep. He came in, bags under his eyes, dragging his feet, right? So if you have a hard time with that, it's a very inexpensive book. I think it's less than $15. So it's a real great writing tool.
It's a good investment.
We have a separate lecture on screenwriting, so we'll move on. Okay. So how long should it be? You should not be making a 2-hour film. Something that we talked about and I'm at UCLA right now in the professional program for screenwriting. And we've got a lot of folks in there that have worked on big pictures. And one of the things they say is don't be writing a 2-hour film. If you're Martin Scorsese, write a 2-hour film, write a 3-hour film. That's great.
But please include an intermission.
But yeah, but also too, for a micro budget picture, selling a 2-hour, if you're an unknown director with unknown talent in your film, selling a 2-hour picture is next to impossible.
Yep.
You can sell a picture that's 75 minutes. You can sell a picture that's 90 minutes, but selling a 2-hour picture as someone who's unknown with unknown talent is really, really hard. Getting people to put money up for a 2-hour picture is even harder. So I'm usually saying 90 pages to maybe 100 pages. I just wrote a screenplay that's 95, and I'm really happy with that.
Mine are usually about 110-ish. The standard screenplay competition length is to be under 110 or 115, somewhere in there and under, because usually they stop reading at 110 pages, and then you have to pay them extra to keep reading, and no one wants to do that. So keeping it under that 110 is usually the most helpful thing if you're trying to compete with the script.
Shelby talked about your studio binder and what should be in it. For us, our studio binder usually contains our casting sheets and our legal for each actor.
Yep.
That is also in our Movie Magic software. It also is going to have our script. It's also going to have our storyboards. We storyboard every moment. And some of the cinematographers are like, I don't need to do that because, I roll loose. At the very least, you should shot list everything for your coverage.
Yep.
One thing I always use, the 3-shot rule. Every single shot that you set up has a bare minimum of 3, always. And for some of you who shoot all the time, you're like, oh my God, 3, that's a really low number. But you should always have that. And if you don't have the experience to be making a feature, make some shorts, right?
Yep.
Learn how to follow those rules. Start with an establishing shot. Go to close up. All of those basic cinematography rules of shooting. But I assume people that are here for this lecture have made shorts before, are ready to, break out of that.
And I will say too, just the importance of storyboarding. I mean, I work in animation, and we would never start designing frames without doing an animatic first. We need to know the timing, because if we get into an animatic and we say, oh, well, actually, we don't need this shot. The shot's not needed. If we would have just went through and just made that, if we would have designed that frame, that's what, 8 hours, maybe 12 hours wasted. So if you can figure that out in the beginning, your storyboards, what do I actually need? What can I cut? And maybe if there's time, what can I add? It's going to help you on set.
Something that you can do too is, I don't know if anybody is a Lord of the Rings fan, but they had Peter Jackson did a behind the scenes for the Lord of the Rings, and they had a fight with the creature. Is it called the Balrog? The creature, the creature. They ran out of money, and he has a thing where it shows the storyboards are all on the wall, and he goes, "We're out of money," and he walked over and just pulled those storyboards off the wall and said, "We're not doing it," because they didn't have any money. But he knew, because of the storyboards, what he could afford and what he couldn't.
Yep.
And that needs to be you. What can you afford? What can't you? What can save you time? What can make it tighter? And what can make your picture move quick? And that's the thing.
And that's also a thing too. If you have a lot of VFX, if you're wanting to make like a big action movie, big explosions, okay, maybe it's going to be a lot of money to show the big explosion, right? And that's all what we have in our head. But if we storyboard it out, maybe we don't need to see the big explosion. Maybe we could just see that person's face and we just see the light on their face.
Which might be better.
Which might be better to do a little bit of more subtle approach. And it's way cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked on all of these costumes, locations, and actors, but I want to talk about the relationship between all of these. Okay. One of the things that we always do first is we have a costuming day. It's costuming day, and they come in and they get fitted. Our makeup artists take their pictures.
And it's exciting.
They get all their sizes done. That is your morale day. Mm-hmm. Everybody's morale is high and they're excited. In May, we're shooting a scene with tuxedos and fancy dresses for the painter. It's a big dinner scene in a mansion. That's very purposeful that that's our first scene, because that's our morale scene. Everybody's going to be happy and it's going to be awesome. We're excited about it. There's a storm, so we're bringing the rain machine in. We're doing a bunch of those things. Be calculating with your schedules to do that. Has anyone ever seen Manchester by the Sea before? the great, great picture with Michelle Williams. Did you know that scene that she was nominated for the Oscar for was their first day of shooting? The first hour of shooting was that I've always loved you. That fantastic scene. Why start with that scene? Because it sets a tone for the rest of your picture.
Yep.
That's that whole thing. Also, as far as locations go, the locations are motivating for your actors. It gets them in a mood and it gets them in a feeling. So I am sharing in advance with my actors, this is the location, and they're excited.
Photos.
Yeah. And then, of course, we talked about that from relationship. Anything you want to add before we move on, Shelby?
No, I think that, just being able to understand that none of this stuff is separate. It's all interconnected. It is all interwoven, because when it's on screen, that's how the audience is going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing all of these things being lived in together. So it's a great way to be able to think about it as well.
Okay. I want to skip ahead a little bit from scheduling. And I want to talk about the last two, because we've talked about the first ones quite a bit. I want to talk about equipment rental, and I want to talk about post. I strongly suggest editing as you go.
Yes.
A big, big mistake people make. Well, there's a couple of big mistakes. One of them is project management. You go and you shoot. You should come back that night, back everything up. So we shot The Cross. The Cross was 4 terabytes of footage. 4 terabytes. That's a lot of footage. That's before we ever even touched it. So that footage came back and we had it organized. Every single cut was labeled. Everything was set up. And I would watch dailies every night. I would also watch dailies during the day. So if I've shot for 2 or 3 hours, I'd sit down at a computer and check, is the camera working correctly? Is the sound okay? I would check every single thing, because if you can find that problem on set, you don't have to go back. A day can be expensive. Some days, maybe I've got a really, really expensive day, and all of a sudden you go, oh, none of the sound came out, and you've got to go back and reshoot. That could be thousands of dollars, right? Or even in a micro budget, maybe it's a $750 day, and you've got to go back. You got another $750 day. So check your footage nonstop. There's so many great devices for computers now that you can check your footage. Be checking all the time and be watching dailies every day. Back in the days of celluloid film, we checked dailies all the time. And as soon as they came back, we checked them. So get in that habit of checking your digital all the time. I would edit all the time too. So for example, if we shot for 3 days, I would edit for 2 or 3 days. By the time The Cross was done with Principal, I had a rough cut 3 weeks later because I had been cutting all the time. Don't wait. If you've got editors available, have them be cutting. And I really strongly suggest cut all the way through your picture.
And sometimes it's really helpful for the actors too. And it's a morale boost. If like they can see what you were just working on 3 days ago and they can see a rough cut, they can see that there's something actually happening. They can see that the work is being done outside of it. And they know that there's going to be a product at the end that they can be excited about.
And if you've got ADR or you need to loop any dialogue,
you know before.
You're going to identify it while they're still on contract. So if they're off contract and they're moved on to another project, all of a sudden they're 2 states away and they need to loop a line. We had a situation, actually Cedric Fevrier, who's a dear friend who lives in Des Moines, we had to loop a couple of lines. So we had to stop in Des Moines, traveling through the state. And we got to his living room. I can't remember how we did it, but we looped 1 or 2 lines in his living room because he was off contract.
And also, if you've got a difficult location and it's maybe a sound that you can't really replicate later, and then you're recording that ADR in a completely different space, sometimes you're going to notice the ADR. So if you can get back to that same location while it's still available, while you're still traveling, do it then. Record the ADR when you're still in that same environment so the sound is similar.
Has anybody ever had to match ADR that sounded absolutely nothing like the original recording? Yeah, I'm seeing a few hands.
You know. Yeah.
Even with a really, really great sound engineer, that's tough stuff.
Yep.
And you can find it. If you've got a good ear, you can be watching a movie and say, that's ADR. Yep. I mean, I can do it all the time. It's like, people are nodding. I can recognize ADR when that happens. Equipment rental, I want to approach this in a separate slide, but watch things and know what you like. That's something I always say. So many people don't know what they like. And when I mean this is like, what color is it? What aspect ratio is it? You need to make those decisions in advance. And once those decisions are made in advance, that will determine what you rent or borrow or buy. I don't know. Does everybody know what I mean by aspect ratio? What is the size? Is it long and skinny? Is it 2.39? Is it going to be a square like a Wes Anderson movie? Is it going to, which I hate that format. I love Wes Anderson movies, but I hate that square format, right? 1:4. Or is it going to be 16:9? But you need to know the aspect ratio, and also you need to know your color palette in advance too. And if you are like me, I don't see color real great, but I know what I like. I'll say, okay, these are my comps for color. I would also recommend having the person who's going to do your color consult with you. This is the color I want. And maybe you don't know. Ask advice from people about your look that you want and have that calculated out. And what it's like. I think too, especially when we look at cameras, for example, like I don't like red cameras. I know it's a hot take, but I don't like red cameras very much for a variety of reasons. There's few people nodding, right? I love Sony cameras, but they got the dumbest lens mount in the world on them. Sorry, Sony. But they got a stupid, anybody agree with that? They have a stupid lens mount on there. I don't like that lens mount.
You're wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't like that L mount very much. I'm a PL guy. I love that PL mount a lot. Which is great. I love like the FX3. Oh my God, it looks so great. But if you put a PL mount on it, it's awesome. But my thing is that you've got to know what you like and you've got to know what you want in advance. And the way that you get that is be well watched and take notes and have that in mind and have your cinematographer and your colorist spend time with them and have a vision with them.
Consult with them.
And
also, I'm going to go back to color for just a moment. Mm-hmm. Have your colorist involved in your pre-production as much as you can. Because if you're casting, and especially if you've got different skin tones, and then you're trying to costume different skin tones, things are going to look better on different colors, right? That's how our eye works. So when you're looking, like when you're talking to your colorist, I mean, for instance, like gingers, right? Gingers are incredibly difficult to color,
careful.
right?
Be careful where you're
treading. It's
treading.
true. I know. I love a ginger. But it's really, really difficult to color because you don't want to get them too pink. You don't want to get too orange. It's a really difficult skin color to be able to color. So when you're trying to costume somebody with a difficult skin tone, you really want to be aware of what is going to look best. You're probably not going to want to put them in orange. You're going to want to put them in greens or natural tones. And
she's right. Consult with your colorist and your cinematographer.
Yeah.
Okay. Filmmaking is the constant resolution of problems. You're having a great shooting day. Nothing's gone wrong. Be suspicious.
Always.
Something goes wrong every day. Multiple things go wrong every day. If you can't handle it, you're not cut out for it, right? That's the thing I always tell. I have so many students that come and they say, I want to be a producer. And they can't handle the constant resolution of problems. They move to a different part of the business. Yep. They end up saying, oh, I'm going to be a colorist or I'm going to be an editor because they can't handle that. It's an emotional thing to be able to understand that. And it's something that you have to come into and say, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? And things that seem like they're perfect will go wrong. We shot Between the Lines, beautiful location. We're ready to go. We sat up. Storm comes. It's got a metal roof. And we sat for 3 hours because the sound was unusable.
And it's midnight.
We got an overnight shoot. We've got only so many hours till they need to open the shop the next morning. It is the constant resolution of problems. So I always have sayings with my students, and I will say filmmaking is, and they will say back to me, the constant resolution of problems. Okay.
You'll find where you fit. That's a really big thing. I'm a really high-strung person, and because of that, I make a good producer because I'm really acutely aware of what's going on all the time. So you'll find where you fit within it. If producing is your thing, if you don't get too overwhelmed, awesome, great. If you do, maybe you want to be an associate producer and figure it out for a little bit before you go up to something that's, kind of big game.
I wanted to be a sound engineer.
Yeah.
How the heck I ended up doing
What happened to you?
I don't know. But anyway, so that happens too. Okay. The big pros of owning gear. If you own gear, that's great. Is there other people here who own gear? Great. Awesome. Cool. The thing about owning gear is it's yours. It's at your disposal. You don't have to worry about it. You can use it for other things. Maybe you're going to shoot weddings or whatever. You've got that. And also it can be, you know, you have this kind of immersive experience because you're using it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. The other thing though is the cons is it's expensive to own gear. You have maintenance cost. Also you have to deal with obsolescence. What's the expression? You date your camera, but you marry your glass. So there's the whole thing of having great lenses. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to rent gear. I've got anamorphic and parfocal, and I've got big cameras and stuff because I'm a professor. So that's not an expense that I have. But we do rental at the college too. Students will rent higher end lenses than what we have. We'll rent lenses that are higher, or cameras that are maybe higher end than what we have. So it's just going to kind of depend on what you want to do. And then that's your vision. Has anyone seen a movie called The Creator before? Okay. The Creator's a good movie, but what's really great about The Creator is how they did this. They shot it with I think it's a Japanese lens. It's an old Japanese lens that was retrofitted. They shot it on an FX3. FX3 is not an expensive camera. It's like a $3,500 camera. And they shot it with a lens that's not very expensive. And then a little Ninja monitor. That whole rig was probably, less than $10,000. They shot a multi-million-dollar movie on that, but these were guys that knew what the color was going to be. They knew, you know, how much depth of field it was going to have. They knew all of these things in advance. So understanding, do I rent? Do I buy? Understanding that is what you want. I would strongly recommend listening to the Team Deacons podcast every week. Mm-hmm. It's a very good podcast. It's with the great Roger Deakins, and they talk about a lot of those things. You should also, maybe you're a director and you're like, I don't care about cameras and lenses. You need to have at least a knowledge of that. So you're like, is this a 50 millimeter here? Is this a 35 millimeter here? Or, you know, one of those things. Or maybe you want to learn, I'm going to do a lecture on how to shoot an anamorphic coming up. But I mean, having those decisions made ahead of time are a big part of it.
Okay. We'll fix it in post. No, you will not. Do not rely on we'll fix it in post. I work for an animation studio. We do a ton of VFX. Do not
had that go wrong
rely
today.
on fixing it.
That happened today with you.
Yeah, it happened today. Be aware of problems before they're problems.
We were literally in the car on the way here, and she was talking some sound on the way here, and the guy said the sound's unusable. It needs to be re-recorded.
You need to re-record it. So because of that, not everything can be fixed in post, right? You can try your best. You can try to cover things, but it's really, really difficult to cover things up in post. And that means stay organized. Data management. And before that, pre-production, stay organized as possible. Data management is so important. It's not the sexy part of filmmaking, making sure your files are properly organized and labeled, but have a labeling system, right? Know what it is, stick to it. Do not put final _ actual final _ really the final. Don't do that. Have numbers, keep things organized, put your initials in there if there's different editors.
If you need a studio management system, we can give you ours.
Yes.
And we can show you how our stuff works. So just request it and we will give you our management system.
It will make things much easier for you. And like we mentioned earlier, edit as you go. Can't stress this enough. It will help you a lot in the long run. And part of that is because VFX, have your edit locked first. It's really difficult if you're working with a VFX team, and they're expensive, right? To have really good VFX done, which of course is just, you know, visual graphics and effects, big explosions. So if you're on set, right, and you know you're going to want to have VFX, and you get into the edit and you edit it and you say, this is great, this is perfect, final _ final, and you send it off to your VFX team. And then all of a sudden, you forgot to show somebody and they have notes and it's already with your VFX team and you need to go back and do another edit and your VFX team's already almost done. You've got to pay them to do that work over again because your edit is changed. Make sure your edit is locked first. You know what the movie's going to look like.
I'm going to jump in here. I want to talk about our process.
Yeah.
We shoot, we log every day that we're in principle. Then also when we get to after that, when we have a rough, we usually have color come in and do sound last. That's okay. You can do sound first and then color last. It doesn't really matter.
But usually if color's done, the movie's pretty much finished.
And I don't know, for people who've worked with colorists, directors, do you like to sit with your colorists? or not? Or do you just trust them? People are like, I just trust them.
I like to.
Okay, I do. I trust mine. So I think that's good. And then we can talk about a
Right.
master probably later.
Yeah, and I'm just going to mention for sound design, yeah, really, really challenging part of filmmaking. Again, there's something to think about in pre-production of what are you going to use? Are you going to make sure you're, boom micing things, and if you can't afford that, using a lav, but being smart about using a lav.
I'm not a
We're
lav.
not lav fans.
We're not lav lovers.
No,
but
so
that
but
might be a
it's-
hot take.
Yeah, but it's just being smart about what you're using first, so that when you get into post-production, sound design isn't an impossible task. But yeah, do that last, because usually that's after the edit has been finished. From real to real. Did you guys like that pun? Thank you. This is marketing and distribution, which we've talked about a little bit.
We're going to have an entire lecture on this another time, maybe not this season, but maybe the next. One of the things that you need to do is have a really good idea what you're going to do with your film. Are you going to have a festival tour? If you're going to have a festival tour, be smart about your festival tour. And when I say that, there's a couple of different strategies in it too. Everybody goes, oh, I'm going to go to Sundance with this. It's really tough to get into Sundance. So especially now with things that have changed. So what I always say is test it out. Iowa's got a lot of great film festivals. So you can test it out, try it out, see how it does. If it seems good, send it to a top 50. If it does well in a top 50, then go ahead and move that. Sorry about that. So if you've got a top 50, then what you can do is then try a top 10. Try that and try to escalate up. You can spend a fortune, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a film that's not, probably not good enough to progress.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to do that, and need to understand, where is my film in the grand scope of things? There's things like that, like Napoleon Dynamite. Everybody remembers Napoleon Dynamite? I remember when Napoleon Dynamite was happening, somebody had contacted me, and I can't remember what festival it was. They said, these two guys had this hilarious film of this kind of kid, and he's pulling an action figure. And it was a short, like 5 minutes. And then later, it wasn't much later, said, hey, those guys who did the action figure thing, somebody gave them money. They're going to shoot that film in like Ohio. And then before you know it, we had Napoleon Dynamite. Cost nothing to make, made millions of dollars. And that's one of those things. It's that idea, right, of knowing, can I get my picture into a big festival to do that? And that doesn't mean that you won't get distribution. Distributors are looking for stuff, and there's great places to put it. But, and again, that's a completely different lecture. But knowing how to navigate that, learning how to do a good talk back is really important. Shake hands and kiss babies is what I always say. Your film festivals and like the Iowa Motion Picture Awards, that's not just a chance for you to go and maybe win an award or screen your picture. That's a chance for you to meet people who are potential allies later.
Yeah.
And that is 90% of it.
Yeah. Shaking hands and kissing babies, which is what this was almost called, is really important. From your talk back, when you come in, being prepared to know kind of how you're going to answer questions, knowing what the film's about. Oftentimes we see people get the question of why did you make this movie? And they don't know how to answer the question. Why did you make the movie? You got to have an answer. Why'd you make it? And also knowing, if it's a really personal film, how much do you want to talk about? How much are you comfortable talking about? I think sometimes we kind of freeze up and we don't know what to say. So being aware of that too is really helpful. Again, it's having that late night talk show conversation.
I think learning to do a talk back is as important as learning how to shoot.
Yeah. And two, when you go to festivals, right? Don't just come for your own screening, for your own talkback. Stay through the entire festival if you can. Go see other films, watch them, learn from other filmmakers, talk to their filmmakers, become fans of other local filmmakers. This is your community, right? Become fans of other people. I'm the biggest fan of people. I fangirl out all the time on our podcast.
Last weekend, we drove 3 hours to somebody's premiere.
Like, do that. Go out of your way. Go see other people. Learn from them. Become friends. It's great. This is your community. Everyone in here right now, this is your community. Become friends with each other. After this, go shake hands and say hello, right?
Yeah.
That's important.
It's bad form to show up to a festival, go to your screening, go to your talkback, and walk out.
Be friendly.
That's such bad form. You're there to support everybody. Don't do that.
Filmmaking is teamwork. Questions.
Question time. Oh my gosh.
We made it.
Did we talk? We talked really fast. No? Okay. Oh,
Oh, we're good. Awesome. Thank you. We have a question.
I'm sorry if this was a little fragmented. I give this lecture at school too, so.
The question about you talk about colored pages.
Yeah.
Did you mean like script you wanted colored pages?
I think he was talking about the binder, color coding your
Yes.
binder.
Okay, so the
Is that what you
question
mean,
is-
color coding the binder?
Yep, question is about color coding your binder. For me, I do this because it's a really easy visual cue of what the days are, and also the actors too. I usually color code days and actors. It's really, really helpful. And it's a simple visual cue. It's just highlighting, done. Or also, you know how they have like the little index cards that you can get in different colors, which basically match the highlighter colors because everything has to be neon for some reason. Do that too. Everything day one is green, right? Or, you know, actor one is pink. Having those things, it's a really, really quick visual. And oftentimes a lot of people who work on film sets are really visual people naturally. So it's helpful.
And if you use Movie Magic, you can match it. And one of the things, I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but like if you take a look at like a pro call sheet and you'll say, Tom Cruise is number 1.
Yeah.
Each actor is assigned a number. So for example,
Yeah.
it'll say this scene has the following actors and these are the numbers attached. That's a really easy thing. So maybe actor number 1, we also know is red. So whenever I see that particular thing, we know who that is.
And create a little legend too. That's usually helpful for people.
Well, and the Movie Magic is great too, because it keeps all of your contract information, all the time they're away, all of that stuff as far as management too. It will really, really help you.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, we got to pass the
Oh,
mic.
well, he's standing right here. I'll just have him speak into my phone.
Okay. Pass
Can
the
you
mic.
talk about like the logistics of payroll and legal and all that?
Yeah.
Like when you're paying somebody, you don't just hand them $50 and say, see you tomorrow, right?
Keep track of things.
That depends on how you negotiate it. Usually it's paid by day. So if you take a look at like what a union contract day is, ideally that's what you should do. If you have the budget to do that,
Do it. Yeah.
do it. For us, because our budgets are so small, we usually do pay on distribution. So what we say is we give you a percentage of the picture. So for example, as the cross ended, our residuals came in and we started to get percentage. We started to mail checks. So that's how that works. But the thing is, be transparent with people and say, listen, I cannot pay you up front. I can't even pay you until the film gets distributed. When the film gets distributed, you'll get paid. The film got distributed, the checks went out. So that's how we work. And then we make that deal with percentage.
Always.
Follow up real quick.
Yeah.
Do you have like an entertainment lawyer draft up these contracts for the actors and for the crew, or is there like standard here boilerplate? Copy this and put your film in. How do you come up with all those?
Because our pictures tend to be created for less than $100,000, we don't usually use an entertainment lawyer. There are 2 very, very good ones in Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
So when we've had what looks like could be a contract dispute, we're like, okay, we may have to call somebody, but we have never had that. Our situation is we've never had I take that back. We did have a contract dispute way, way back with an actor on our very first picture, and it ended up tanking the picture. It ended up keeping us from getting distribution on that picture, and we learned a lot from that. So that's a separate discussion altogether. That's probably a question more for legal, but make sure that everybody's on the same plate. Yeah.
Keep everybody on the same page. Be as honest as possible, right? Be completely transparent. And I say this too, for commercial production, be transparent in commercial production too. I think this just kind of goes across the board. Don't try to hide anything, right?
Mhm.
Everybody should know.
Absolutely. I think Deb's got a question.
I do. This is from your online audience.
Ooh.
So the question is, what is the name of the software that you mentioned instead of Final Draft?
Oh, I like
Wait, first, the question is, what is the program you can use instead of Final Draft?
there's a lot of hot takes on the software.
Yes.
Final Draft is what everybody uses. Okay. And I'm going to be really straight about this. Final Draft can be awful. I don't know anybody ever use Final. It can be wonky and
A little
difficult,
buggy.
and it can do things, and it's not always great. I honestly think that there's some other software in the business that is superior, but nobody really uses it because we've been using Final Draft for so long. I feel like Writer Duet Writer Duet is actually probably a better software. But also too, I mean, and Shelby knows, like at Emerson and UCLA, nobody uses it. Everybody uses Final Draft. So, and industry wide, everybody uses Final Draft. So, if you're beginning, use Writer Duet. I think you get up to 3 scripts free in there,
Mhm.
and so
And you can
it works
always
great.
just delete a script.
You can always delete a script too.
You know.
I don't know if you'd want to delete a script,
Well, export it.
but it also has
Bring it back.
sharing in there. So if you're collaborating with somebody,
Which-
oh my gosh, it's awesome.
Which is a really big thing because that's usually the reason people want to use Final Draft is for the sharing capabilities. But Writer Duet also has that.
All
I
my college kids
use
use it.
I use Final Draft because that's the program that I'm the most skilled in. I know it really, really well. I can get in there. There's a ton of really good pre-production tools in Final Draft as well. You can map out your scripts really easily. You can map out characters really easily. You can also, if you can't afford Movie Magic, you can export a lot of things about your script, about characters whenever they show up. That's a really great tool to be able to export some different data about your script.
And Movie Magic integrates perfectly with Final
Yes.
Draft. It's awesome.
So Final Draft, obviously, if you can afford it, usually just you buy it the one time and you own the software on.
I think it's monthly now, isn't it? Final Draft's monthly now.
I'm looking
I don't know.
at that. There is a free trial of Final Draft, so there's a free 30-day
Free
trial.
30-day
There you go.
trial for Final Draft.
And then it's also offering some online coupons for 5%.
Nice.
Online coupons.
So, and I think there might be a student price.
Yeah, there is definitely a student
Yeah.
price. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
13 is out now.
I avoid them. So I
Yeah.
got them on a student, and I just keep that computer as long
Yeah.
as I can. It's going to stay alive forever.
I'm a professor, so I get student cost all the time. What are the perks? Okay. Yeah, down in the front.
Are there any issues with, or is it frowned upon to use union and non-union actors in the same set?
That's such a great.
That's
Okay,
a
this is
great
a great
question.
question. Is it frowned upon to use union and non-union actors on the same set? Okay. One of the things that we find, and okay, I hope I don't get a lot of hate for this, but one of the things we find is we don't have a giant union presence in Iowa. And because of that, it's pretty difficult to do a union project just because we don't have the resources to do union project. We'll do a non-union project, and then what I'll do is if I have union actors, the union actors will go ahead and do the paperwork for permission to do that. I've had really good luck doing it that way. But you have to be, and again, it's about transparency. This is a non-union project. This is what we have. But I always make the promise to my actors that even though the project is not union, we will operate as a union set. We'll operate under the same rules as a union set. We're under no obligation to do that, but we do. Sometimes you will find actors that are red, white, and blue union. Like if it's not a union project, I won't work on it. And that's okay. The thing I always say about actors, there's a lot of them. So there's, and this is going to be probably all the actors are not going to like this. If you have an actor that's difficult, there's always another actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know that sounds terrible, but it's like, if you've got an actor, there is no one who's so talented that they can't be replaced. So that's one of those things as well.
You have to trust the people that you're working with, and goes to that. But one of the reasons, am I back? Hello. One of the reasons I actually like integrating both union and non-union actors, there we go. Why I like integrating them is because they can teach each other things. There's a lot of, I think I'm cutting out. Can I use your mic? Maybe this will work. One of the things that I really like about integrating both union and non-union actors is because they can teach each other a lot. There are so many great non-union actors that don't get an opportunity because they're non-union, and it's not fair. And I love the union. Union is great, but we have to make sure that people are getting opportunities. And I'm a really, really big proponent of making sure that non-union actors get opportunities. But it's a great thing too to have union actors on there because they can teach them a lot about the business too. So being able to have, it's like we were saying earlier, if you can have other people on your crew, other actors, uplift other folks that maybe don't have the same experience, use those opportunities.
I've been eligible in 3 different unions throughout the years. If somebody is like, well, I'm in the union, being in the union is not a flex. Okay. There are a lot of crazy talented people that are not in the union.
Yep.
There are a lot of actors that are better than union actors. There are a lot of, people that work in all different facets of the industry that are not in the union. So if somebody does that thing of like, well, I'm in the union, like it's some kind of flex, that's fine, but that does not speak to the quality of that person. So please don't be dazzled by the union card. I love the union and I'm very, very supportive of it.
Same.
But also too, just remember, like I said, it's not a flex.
Check. Oh, not working. Yeah, so you were talking about points. You're talking about points versus paying people right away. Do you have much experience of people just flaking on the production if there's no cash involved?
We've never had anybody flake.
Mm-mm.
Not once.
Not
No
once.
position. That's awesome.
No position, not one. And okay, so the question was, because we don't pay anybody in advance, have we ever had anyone just abandon a project? We've never had that happen. Part of it is because I think we vet really well in the front too. The number one thing I'll say is build yourself a reputation as a reputable filmmaker. That is the most valuable thing that you can do. We started out and we'd have auditions and we'd get 6 or 7 people for a short, and that would be kind of the case, and we would do that. When we auditioned The Cross, we had 140 people come. They were coming from 3-4 states away. We weren't guaranteeing payment on the film because Shelby and I were known as people who finish films.
Yep.
We're known as people that work really, really hard for our actors. And people came out because they knew that we would get behind our actors. We knew we'd get behind our crew and we would be there for them. We always have done that. And that was kind of the case. So whenever we go ahead and we have, there we go. Thank you. Whenever we go ahead and we have a project, we are very fortunate that people come out and do that. That's not to say we might have somebody flake at some point, but
Please
that's why we've
nobody
been pretty
flake.
lucky.
Please don't.
Yeah, please don't. We can go into principal soon.
Cool.
Good. Any other questions? Good. Hi.
So for storyboarding, do you guys hire someone to draw those, or do you use a software? In my experience, I see the value of it, but I've never been good at that, so I just
Okay.
think Josh is hard to communicate.
So the question is, do we hire somebody to do the storyboards? I don't. I draw the most attractive stick figures you've ever seen. I really, for me, it's pretty much, wides and, figuring out what that is. Shelby's an artist, so she draws them and hers are gorgeous. So she does that. So maybe you've got somebody on your crew that wants to do that, but it's not necessary. Even when I was in the business, I drew 1 million stick figures. So, I mean,
You'll get the point across. I think that's the main thing is there's a lot of pressure, I think. Yeah, I'm just gonna take yours. There's a lot of pressure to have beautiful storyboards that I think is unwarranted. And I think we're seeing that discussion a lot right now, at least I am in animation, of, oh, okay, well, we'll just replace all storyboard artists with AI. No, because the thing is, storyboard artists are so worthwhile and they're great and they will help you see things that you could never have seen, right? But if you can't afford a storyboard artist, don't go to AI because stick figures will work, right? It's really, really great to be able to use the stick figures. And if you have somebody on there that can draw, use the person that can draw. And maybe they'll have really good ideas because they already have an eye for design and eye for art.
and Shelby stumbled onto something that's a completely separate topic. Our attitude about AI is we never use AI for anything creative, ever. We use AI to do things like filter sound. We use AI to correct footage. We'll do it for monotonous things to help us, but we will never use it as a creative resource in any way.
I have another online question for you. The question is, what is the highest budget film you have either directed or produced?
In my life? Oh my gosh. Okay. Directed or produced? I don't know. That's pretty tough. You work on $1 million stuff all the time.
I don't know if I can say.
I don't think you're allowed to say.
I'm under some NDAs.
When I was in TV, I worked on several $100,000 commercials.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that kind of stuff when I was in the business. I did some Fortune 500 brands back then. You do big stuff, which I know she can't talk to you. She does stuff that you see on TV every day, but I don't think you're allowed
We're
to
under
talk about it.
some here.
So what about for your personal project?
Yeah.
Oh, heck, I don't think we've ever made a film over what? 15 grand.
Yeah, no, we stay pretty much under 15 grand. Yeah.
Yeah. The Cross was made for, like I said, less than $10,000. But you've got to understand too, our situation is different because I work for a college. I've got full disposal of equipment. I mean, I go out with $35,000 worth of equipment every time I go out. If you were if you put together all the in-kind resources, the Cross is probably more like a $60,000 movie. But I have a lot of in-kind resources because I'm a professor and I'm able to do that. Shelby works in the business. She also has a lot of resources too. So it's that thing of our day gigs help us pay for our production. So if we say, yeah, we made the Cross for 10,000, well, yeah, that's out of pocket, but we also probably had about $60,000 worth of resources at our disposal to do that.
That's why I don't like the whole let's shame a filmmaker for, oh no, now I'm both cutting out. Don't shame people that, don't shame people that work in the industry that also do commercial production or do weddings, because that stuff helps you. If you're able to, write off something for taxes because you're using your camera for your own business for commercial production, that's awesome, right? If you're able to get connections because you're doing commercial production or weddings, that's awesome. If you're able to teach, there are a million other opportunities for what you're doing in your day job that will help you make your independent film. Don't shame artists for working or selling out. That's a silly, silly thing, right? You've got to be able to make your money. You've got to be able to make your movie. And if you're doing something that helps you gain those connections, that's so worthwhile. Don't shame people.
Yeah. Also, too, I know everybody wants to be an auteur. Minecraft movie just came out. Everybody's laughing. Oh, the Minecraft movie. The Minecraft movie employed thousands of people, right? Hundreds and hundreds of people. Those tentpole movies like that, we giggle about them and everything too, but they hold up our industry. So, I mean, there's always the thing, Scarlett Johansson, she was never, if you ever watched it, she was never too terribly excited to be in Marvel movies. But what she was able to do, because she did those movies, she was able to be in Marriage Story and be nominated for an Oscar. So the thing is, don't be hard on the big budget movies. The big budget movies exist so we can have that artistic part of our industry that really matters. So yeah, I think that's important.
We're all hustling.
We're all hustling. Yeah.
So I got so many questions, but you talked about like Peter Jackson and the ball rug, like
Mhm.
gotta cut
Yeah.
this. What's a corner that you guys cut routinely when you're like, oh man, you know what, we can't afford
It's locations.
or
Yeah. What is a corner that we cut routinely that we can't afford?
Locations usually, because usually we'll say, okay, we have a restaurant set up here, but we can't get the restaurant we need. Can we move this to another set that we currently have? We will currently switch a scene to another location to save money. We'll do that very frequently.
And I think that those challenges are actually really great. I think they're really good opportunities to be innovative. Because the entomologist's wife that I just made, thank you. The entomologist's wife that I just made has giant 6-foot-tall marionette puppets and completely fabricated sets made from cardboard and black paper, right? I mean, if I could have gotten like a big Victorian house, maybe I would have done that. If I could have just gotten something completely black and gothic and fun, yeah, maybe I would have done that. But I wanted to make this movie on the cheap, right? I wanted to do it independent, and I wanted to do it with a really small crew. And because of that, I was able to do something a little bit more innovative, a little more different, push myself. So I think that the idea of cutting corners, if you're able to do it right, it will breed innovation. That's how I feel.
Awesome. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay.
Speaking of budgets, you guys like to do a seminar like this
We
Yeah.
can do it.
Definitely
We
can.
can definitely. I don't know. The question was, can we do a seminar which would be on fundraising and funding your film? We'll probably if we do that, we'd probably fold that into distribution. It'd be
Mhm.
fundraising and distribution because they're the same beast. We're now in a situation where we've had a successful film, and because we've had a successful film, there's more available to us because of that. The successful film breeds usually the opportunity for another successful film. So that's one of those things. Yes, Deb.
Why don't you tell them all the wonderful things that you're going to be doing for us every month and all of the whole series of workshops that are coming in our way?
Okay.
What do we have coming up?
So Deb, we have a small series of workshops coming up. There's one each month. This is the first one. The next one is going to be, what is the next one? It's
Writing your
May 8th,
feature.
and registration opens now.
Yes.
May 8th. Yeah.
May
so,
8th. It's writing your feature screenplay.
Yep. And Shelby has a MFA from the Emerson School of Film in Boston, which is the #4 screenwriting school in the country.
This is my specialty.
And in June, I will be finishing the program at UCLA. So I've been with the writing program at UCLA. So if I look really, really stressed, that's why, because I've been writing every day and it's really, really stressful. It's a fantastic program. So we're going to be talking about writing your feature screenplay coming up. And then we have in June, I don't remember the date for the June event. June 26th. I think we have a whole evening. We're going to have a meet and greet with us.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to have pre-production, advanced pre-production. Then after that, we're going to screen the cross. We're going to screen my picture,
So
our picture.
we will do a breakdown during that advanced pre-production of what we did to be able to make a period piece.
Yep.
And then we will screen the period piece
Mhm.
right after.
And then afterwards, we'll have a talk back so we can talk about it. So block that off. That's going to be like a whole evening.
It's July.
July, I don't think we have anything scheduled.
July 17th is the next one.
Then July 17th would be the next one. I don't think we have it scheduled.
These are all here in person.
Yes.
It's all going to be here in person. I'm like a rash that won't go away.
We are here, man.
We're just coming
Email
back.
info at IMPA if you have questions.
Yep. And we're so happy to help you.
Email info@impa.tv.
Mhm.
Or is it just
.tv.
.tv? Info@impa.tv.
And also,
for
if you are an Iowan or have an Iowa connection, we cannot emphasize enough how wonderful the Iowa Motion Picture Association is. If you are not a member, you should be a member.
Yep.
Also, too, we are very lucky in Iowa to have the IMPA. I travel all over, and people always ask. You know, Kansas. I was just in a film festival in Kansas this past week, and everybody was talking about how great the IMPA is. So you're very lucky to have it. So if you're not a member, you should be.
And also, too, if you haven't really been to many festivals, maybe you haven't made a short yet, if there's anybody online listening too, a really great thing to start off getting to know people in the community is to go to the Iowa Motion Picture Association Awards Gala on May 31st. It is so much fun. You get to dress up. It's one of my favorite events of the year.
Okay, the dressing up is not my favorite part.
That's my favorite part. So come dress up, have fun. And it's a really good place to meet people.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrific. So you can definitely do that. Good. I think if nobody has any questions, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Oh, I see one.
Does Final Draft allow you to import writer duet, or you just change it to PDF?
Okay, Final Draft will not open Writer Duet, but Writer Duet will open Final Draft.
However, I think there might be something in Final Draft where you can copy and paste it and you can make Final Draft recognize
That
it.
might work. I bet there's an online person out there that knows
Yeah.
that question. So,
Or sometimes it's switched to PDF
yeah.
Final Draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of you mentioned originally writing in duet. So Final
Yep.
Yeah, but I've switched over to Final Draft. UCLA
Just
made
come to
me.
the dark side.
UCLA was like, Mike, you can't do this. I'm like, okay. So I switched over. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So and everything. Shelby and I are really excited to do this series, and we wanted to thank everybody at the IMPA for inviting us to do this series of lectures. I hope everybody learns a lot too. And I know that sometimes we have some hot takes and you have different opinions, and that's completely okay. But we're here to share our experience, and we'll share our experience and do that. So get out and make your feature. I was really impressive. Not this past summer, but the previous summer, we did 13 feature films in Iowa. Half of those films got distributed. So we want to see that. That's impressive for a state with this kind of population. It used to be that we were the state that was just full of shorts. We're seeing fewer shorts and more features, and that's great. That's what we need because there is a market for features. So that's what we need to be doing.
And I'll also say for the next session that we're doing, the next discussion that we're leading, since it's going to be on screenwriting, if you have screenwriting friends, if you just have writer friends in general, people that are especially working on short stories or novels, invite them out because I'll also talk about adaptation some too. And I think that that's a really good skill to learn because sometimes you're trying to sell your novel and they want you to write a movie instead. So learning those skills is a really valuable thing.
And Shelby's a whiz, she's just like all those big time screenwriting competitions. She's always, I think last time we checked, she was still in the top 10 of read list with one of her scripts. She's always like at the very top. So I can say, it's my fiance. I can brag her up all I want. So
Thanks.
pretty great. So anyway, all right. Yes.
Could I mention that the third Tuesday of every month, we have open script night.
Third Tuesday of every month is open script night,
6
6 p.m. It's very cool. So if you have a chance and you want people to, do you want a table read? They'll read your words. So it's really cool.
And it's on Zoom,
Actors too.
but you do have to register.
It's done on Zoom, needs pre-registration. Okay, I think that's it.
Great.
They're probably tired of us. We should go.
No.
Well, like I always tell all my students, thanks for hanging out with me. I
Yeah.
appreciate everybody, and we'll see everybody in a month or so.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.